Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. Algeria, a nation that did not take part in the Arab Spring, voting for its president this Thursday. The three-time incumbent, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, 77 years of age, wheeled in to vote. Remember, he spent a good part of last year recovering from a stroke here in France. Before we turn back to our panel, let's say hello to James Creedon. It's time for our Media Watch segment. We reminded people at the outset that, you know, in Algeria, we're talking about a nation where 70% of the population is under the age of 30.
That's right, and because of that, Francois, 3G, mobile phones, social media playing an increasingly important role in this election, more than ever before. And what we're seeing is images circulating on social media of the president. Indeed, that image that is now doing the tour of news channels as well, voting from his wheelchair. That is an image that has been doing the rounds of social media. Just as we're talking about social media, 3G, which of course means faster connections, it came to Algeria 4 months ago, which means more young people connected via their mobile phones, a greater degree of reaction, a greater degree of involvement in that discourse, that public discourse. So you can see a lot of images of Abdelaziz Bouteflika in his wheelchair, and a lot of critical comments of that, indeed his state of health, his ability to run the country. People also having satirical images such as that one. Could this be the new Algerian flag? One hopes not. Usually there is not a man sitting on top of the symbol. Here he is, despite his incapacitation, winning the race, right? So a lot of people having fun with it. And perhaps satire is a way of passing a political message as well. We don't take you or this too seriously. It is also a form of engagement. But did you know, Francois, that in 2003, you probably did know this, Lansana Conté in Guinea voted from his car. It was a sort of a drive-through vote at the time as well. His health wasn't so good. The now deceased former president of Guinea. Now, other images doing the rounds of social media are, these are election observers, 1 seat per election observer for each candidate. There were 6 candidates. You can see that only the observer for Abdelaziz Bouteflika present here, the others seeming to think it's not worth bothering. Also, a low degree of voter turnout, images showing empty voting booths in Algeria. Now, as we're talking about social media, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, a very big presence on Facebook, 440,000 likes for that Facebook page, Francois, except, as some observers have pointed out, that shot up earlier this month, and an awful lot of his fans, his Facebook fans, appear to be based in Turkey. Now, it appears that a lot of those Facebook likes are quite likely, so to speak, to have been purchased. There is now quite a flourishing industry of like farms, as they're called, where you can essentially pay a company to boost your presence on Facebook. So it does seem that that is a factor.
James, nonetheless, there's criticism of the way the media is handled in Algeria, but sometimes you open the papers and the criticism of the president is quite vociferous.
That's right. It is. It's sort of a paradox when it comes to the Algerian media, because depending on which direction you look in, there is censorship, but then there's an awful lot of freedom to criticise, in particular, as you said, in the print press. So just to take a look at some of that, some elements of that paradox, this article is talking about Atlas Television, Al Atlas. Now, that was one of these private channels that emerged within the last year. It was shut down in March, Francois, because it was overly critical. It appears that, I mean, the official reason is that it wasn't licensed, but everybody pretty much suspects that it was because there was too much open criticism of Abdelaziz Bouteflika. There was even a YouTube appeal by the director of that channel, and sort of an SOS. Now, but as you say, in the print press, an awful lot of freedom to criticise. We all, in the France 24 newsroom, I think a lot of people are familiar with the Dilemme cartoonist, who is extremely irreverential. Here is one of his recent cartoons
Boutef en route towards a 4th term.
And the horizon not looking too positive there, sort of a black horizon from Dilemme's point of view. And this one recently, he's comparing him to the missing Malaysia Airlines flight, which is giving off some signals every now and again, but essentially absent. So, I mean, you can't get much more irreverent than that. And this stuff is published in the Algerian press. So that does say an awful lot for the freedom of Algerian media to some extent or other. And you have also columnists such as Kamel Daoud, who writes for the Quotidien d'Oran, a very vocal, vociferous critic of Abdelaziz Bouteflika. And his articles are frequently published. Sometimes he says when they're not published, he puts them on Facebook and they circulate that way. So.
All right, James Creedon, many thanks. And of course, I know that on Twitter and Facebook. They'll be watching as the election returns begin to come in. Madjid HOCINE, your thoughts on the quality of the debate you've seen during the campaign among Algerians?
There was no debate. There was no debate in Algeria. One of the problems in the Algerian society now is that there's no more debates. After '88, after all Arab Springs, we used to have debates. We see free press, free newspapers. So we see the emergency of cartoonists. We used to have on radio debates, on TV debates. No, in Algeria, there's no more debates. You are not allowed to debate. You are allowed to vociferate, and they don't care if you vociferate. But there are no more debates between citizens. There are no more party in Algeria. There are no more party.
All right, let me get Catherine Norris-Tren, our correspondent who's in Algiers, to react to that. Catherine, what's your sense as far as how much freedom of expression you've seen talking to ordinary Algerians?
Well, there's a remarkable amount of freedom of expression in that people will voice their political views in no uncertain terms and tell you exactly what they think of the political system and the president on camera as well. And that's been very striking here. And the Algerian press is remarkable as well. Papers, El Watan published a very critical piece on the ruling party, the FLN, just in the last days of the election campaign, saying that corruption was an incurable disease and really hitting out at the system there. And it is remarkable how Algerian people do like to talk about public affairs, not necessarily interested in the political system as it stands now, in their choice of candidates, as it were, but they will talk about public life, they'll talk about the economy, the things they need. And there is this debate very much going on, even among young people, even if their views are negative, and a lot of them say, well, I want to leave Algeria, they'll tell you what they think the problems are.
Hamza HAMOUCHENE, are we overplaying how much of a heavy hand there is on the part of authorities? Maybe the Algerians, they get the word out when they have something to say.
Yeah, there is a relative freedom of expression in Algeria compared with other countries in the region, but there are always red lines. If you become too critical to the system, if you become dangerous, you get repressed. So we've seen like the Barakat movement, which is a small movement of journalists, intellectuals and civil servants organizing protests in different parts of the country. They were repressed at almost all the time. Just yesterday, we were repressed violently. We had the Atlas TV was shut down because it became too critical to the fourth term of Bouteflika. So in that regard, there are limits on the debate. So you'll have a strong debate when you have a vibrant civil society that can propose alternative. But this civil society is struggling to revive itself. And as I said before, this is a long-term project.
Long-term project in a nation, and I'll put this to you, Malika, AKROUF, in a nation where you have what they call, they use the French word, le pouvoir. That is to say, it's sort of a mix, right, between the politicians, the intelligence services, and the military. And how much of le pouvoir is it deciding things, is it pulling strings at this point?
You know, we like it or we don't like it. The people who have the power now, the pouvoir, as you say, they are getting old. So one day or the other, they will disappear from the scene. We are now, and that it's my, feeling, we are in a transition period because the young people are pushing now the old people. And the old people, as I told you, they are getting sick, they are getting older, and they will disappear from the scene. And as an Algerian woman, I really hope that we will not have any spring or any summer in our country, because we see what is going on now in Egypt, in Libya. I will not mention Tunisia, because Tunisia has no oil, has no gas, has nothing, it has tourism. And I went just after, the revolution. And when the tourists disappear, the Tunisians understood that it's not what they want for their country. So the Algerians, they are not hoping to have a Libya or Egypt situation. We don't want it.
a staggering statistic. 97% of Algeria's exports are down to oil and gas.
And no vision, no strategy, no plan for the after hydrocarbon area, which is coming very fast. But I would like just to rebound on what Malika just said, this transition concept. Algeria has been in transition for decades now, from control economy to liberalism, through controlled society and civil society, to the freedom that they are trying to express now, to this renewal of generations, to the change of the system. This transition process has been taking too long, and is most probably part of the despair that we can feel among the youth. The young people are really desperate for a better life, for a future, for just work. And the other element of this society is also that it's going through a moral crisis. Many moral values have been destroyed, have vanished also.
50 years in a nation, it's nothing, 50 years. It's really nothing. And we have to go from one system to another system, from society.
Yes,
there is a kind of democracy more and more, you know. In the past, it was impossible to write whatever on any newspaper. Now, when you open the newspaper, the people are criticizing.
Algerians have a vibrant press, a very smart one.
Yes.
There is one part of society that we're not hearing much from, and I'll bring it to you, Catherine Norris-Trent, on this, which is the Islamists. The ones that were poised to win those elections back in 1991 that were suspended by the military, the civil war ensued. The Islamists, are we hearing from them today? Do you hear from Islamists?
No, it's more of a background voice in this election. Three of the main Islamist parties are boycotting this vote, saying they don't want it to lend it their legitimacy by taking part in that at all. The main opposition candidate, the man who's being billed as the main opposition candidate, Ali Ben Fleece, has managed to rally some Islamist groups behind him, but in a rather non-cohesive way, because he's got different bits of support from people around the country. But at the moment, that's really the elephant in the room, I would say. Again, there are people here in Algeria who are very concerned about what the role of Islamism could be in the future, of going back to the civil war in the 1990s again. So that is something that is on people's minds, but it's not openly one of the issues on the table at this election.
Madjid, if you have freedom of speech, you have to give it to everyone, right?
Yes. Yes, but in Algeria, 99% of the population is Muslims. But that does not mean that they want religious leaders to involve themselves in politics. You don't forget something. Algeria has been traumatized by the 10 years of civil war, and no Algerian don't want anymore. Most of the Algerians don't want anymore the religion to mix in the political choices. Absolutely. We are in a kind of post-Islamist era in Algeria, which is the...
Yeah, also the Islamists have backed up from trying to get to power through politics. They are working more intensively, calmly, peacefully on the society to get it back to the moral values that have been lacking until now, and they are looking towards the power within this venue, not through taking power through politics. No. And the examples of what happened in the region, I mean, the setbacks in Tunisia and the tragedy in Egypt, helped them to consider another scenario.
Absolutely.
Let me bring in Hamza HAMOUCHENE on this. Hamza, your thoughts on Islamists? Should we be hearing their voice a little bit more in Algeria?
First, let's say it clearly, Islamism is no alternative to the current regime. What we need in Algeria is a secular democracy done in a social and national framework.
That's your opinion, Hamza. Hamza, that's your opinion. But again, those 1991 elections, it was Islamists who were poised to win.
Yeah, I'll come back to the Islamists. We need a democracy that needs to achieve a social consensus by opposing the neoliberal policies that have been imposed on Algerians for the last 3 decades. A democracy that needs to work for the interests of the people rather than foreign capitals and companies. But when it comes to Islamism, the Islamist project has failed. They proved that they are intolerant and violent in the 90s, and the so-called moderate Islamists have been co-opted into the regime. They participated in different coalitions inside the regime. So they are morally bankrupt, and like the regime, they have no legitimacy in the eyes of the people. Some of them, with the secular RCD, the Rally for Democracy and Culture, are calling for a boycott. But who would listen to them? If people are not going to vote, it is because they are deeply alienated with the system in place. What we need is a complete rupture with the regime in place and its allowed opposition. We need to create an authentic democratic transition, and that will take time.
Right, but if you have real elections, where all the voices are representative, some of those voices are going to be for political Islam. Don't you agree?
Yeah, but this needs to be done in democratic elections, when you have free and fair and transparent. These elections are done in a despotic and authoritarian framework. So the president has been decided from the start. So what's the point in running for a president in that framework? This is a complete farce. It is a charade. I think the only moral choice to do right now is to boycott the elections and work hard and look after today. That's how we build a transition, a genuine transition. It doesn't need to be guided by an authoritarian system. It needs to be guided by the people, by the democratic forces. If these democratic forces are weak, we need to build them. And myself, I belong to a young generation, and we are hopeful. We can learn from the experiences of Tunisia and Egypt. We've seen it in Egypt. You cannot achieve a democratic transition in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. It's going to take a long time, and it's up to us, the young generation, to do that. The kleptocracy and the gerontocracy that is running the country right now needs to give the opportunity to the young generation. It is perpetuated by 2 things. It's the oil rent that is buying the social peace, and of course the support and backing and the outright collusion of Western capitals with the repressive regime.
Collusion with Western capitals and the oil money. Let me go around. There's something I haven't done. Your voice is clear to me, Hamza, as far as, but I want to go around with the room on this. Did you vote?
No.
You did not vote?
No.
Did you vote? No.
No.
That's 2 out of 3. Oh dear.
No.
Well, turn out is 0% on this panel.
It's not by voting that we will change the system. It's really a long time. And I vote today. Bouteflika is going to be elected in any case. I vote or I don't vote. So what is the point for me to go to vote? Because I'm not going to change whatsoever. I'm sorry, I do believe in the importance of casting a ballot, and I usually vote. Personally, I don't have the Algerian citizenship.
Ah, okay.
Voilà.
But you would have voted if you'd had
absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
Majid HOCINE?
I think that there's no use to vote. The game is done. Everybody knows it. The most important thing now is to think about the future. There will be no political change now. People should work for long time change. We need a long time. We need to learn how to debate. We need to learn how to think, how to gather, how to create party, how to create association. And now this thing does not exist anymore in Algeria. So we need a transition,
You're
a big change.
seeing a country that's more fragmented than before? Or is it a country that's ready? We talked earlier when we did our Media Watch segment about how there's 3G now, it's easier to communicate.
It's a country in coma. It's a country under anesthesia.
The doctor. Yeah, no, he's right. Don't forget
it's a country under anesthesia. I do remember the 80s. I do remember the 90s. Algeria was full of hopes. People were gathering. There were party. There were association. Youth used to think. There was books. Many things. There's nothing else. Nothing more in Algeria. People are concerning by economical problems, social problems, their own interests. We need to recreate a social life in Algeria.
And the things like the Barakat movement that we talked about earlier, this movement of intellectuals in the capital and elsewhere.
It's too early to say what Barakat is. I don't know what Barakat is.
All right, so
it's too early.
20 years ago, when there were those the demonstrations in 1988, it was thriving. Now you're saying it's comatose.
Yes.
You're a medical doctor, so that's a heavy statement there. What advice would you give at this point then to Egyptians? Because it looks like it's a military man who's going to be the next president. They're all going to vote for him.
Algeria and Egypt are very different countries. I don't think that we can compare the systems of the two systems. The Egyptian system is more violent than the Algerian system.
More violent? There were 200,000 killed during the Civil War.
In Algeria, you're under a military regime. You are not under a dictator. There's a great difference. You have shown the cartoons of Mr. Dilem. These cartoons are not possible in Egypt.
Of course not.
In Algeria, if I want, I can go Rue Didouche Mourad in the center of Algiers and say Bouteflika is a liar, Bouteflika is whatever. There's no danger. No, there's no
outlet. There is freedom.
There is freedom. There's a kind of freedom in Algeria.
Yeah.
It's a great difference between Egypt.
Yeah. What's the use that is
Algeria is the country of paradox.
Yeah, we can speak out. There is freedom.
It's very hard to understand Algeria. You need to be a very smart man. It's to understand the system and the power in Algeria, and it's being like being a criminologist in the 80s.
Nevertheless, we can figure out that this freedom of expression, which does exist absolutely, and we saw all these cartoons, and we saw how the web has been.
Ratzinger.
Yes, absolutely. But there is nothing behind this. There is no reflection. There is no thought.
So Mansouria, picking up on the point that was made earlier by Malika, that the scenario is all scripted in advance. Bouteflika gets re-elected, the constitution's changed to have a vice president, and then that vice president becomes the new head of the country. Yeah. How's that going to go down?
I'm not good at envisioning things the way they will unfold in Algeria, but I do know that today we are really on the brink of a serious crisis, because everything could erupt easily at any point because of this feeling of despair that I mentioned, and because also of the economic problems that are going to come out very quickly, as I said.
But you've said, and everyone else around the table has said as well, that nobody wants to go back to the blood years. So how much of a feeling of despair is it? They'll just accept it? They'll just accept the next phase?
We will wait and see.
Maybe wait and see. Maybe we can look more attentively to this nascent organization of the civil society, because like in every Arab country, there is no civil society in Algeria. But we see something getting organized. For the moment, as you said, it's nothing very important. It's more a rejection of Bouteflika, is more an outcry
but
of...
But there is not even opposition. Where the people
there
doing all those years?
Absolutely.
You know, like, all the candidates now, they never opened their mouths before. They just wait for the campaign to do what they want to do. But opposition, it's a long-term process.
Absolutely.
It's during the mandate of the president.
And even Islamists, they don't have... In the 80s and 90s, we used to have Islamic leaders. Give me a name of an Islamic leader in Algeria. There's nobody.
There is nobody.
Nobody. Abbasi Madani is in Qatar or in Malaysia, and Ali Belhaj is somewhere in Algeria. Nobody's concerned about him.
There is no opposition.
Yeah.
All right. It's the Algerian elections, which of course we'll continue to follow, and we'll look at the results and see how the turnout is and who won. Little suspense around this table. But I want to thank our panel. I want to thank, for joining us from London, Hamza HAMOUCHENE. I want to thank here in the studio Mansouria MOKHEFI, as well as Madjid HOCINE and Malika AKROUF. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.
Thank you.